everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Thankfully it's a lot more bearable today. There was a bit of thunder early morning when it was very muggy, but now it seems that has cleared the air somewhat and it is a lot more bearable weather-wise, which is good. So I'm now going to, there's another article I want to discuss briefly, and then I do want to get on and address just some of your comments. I'll have to do them piecemeal though, because there's quite a lot to get through, so it'll just be like, piecemeal, but I do want to address a few of the comments. So I came across this article called Critical Neurodiversity, Neoliberal, Marxist and Intersectional Approaches. So this article explores neurodiversity, or the neurodiversity paradigm, from those three different perspectives. So first of all, there's something called neoliberal neurodiversity. Now, neoliberal neurodiversity is where the neurodiversity paradigm is used to try to advance outcomes of those, to try and improve outcomes of, say, autistic and other neurologically disabled people. I'm trying not to use the word neurodivergent because I don't like that word. Other neurologically disabled people without challenging capitalism. So it's really, so the actual system, neoliberal neurodiversity, does not challenge the system of capitalism. This focuses on individual strengths, so traits that can be considered economically useful under neoliberalism. And it is this brand of neurodiversity, if you want to call it that, which is propagated in elite universities and businesses. It is a strengths-based model of a neurodiversity paradigm, focusing on individual strengths, often very much positive stereotyping. There's a lot of positive stereotyping going on here, where a person's condition is seen as giving them particular advantages, and we all know how problematic that concept is. It employs a lot of positive psychology. Neurodiversity or neurodivergence is seen as a competitive advantage within the framework of capitalism. I don't know how they can see it as a competitive advantage, certainly not what I have, but it's seen as a competitive advantage, a very particular type of, it's very elitist. Clearly only if you have a very particular type of neurodiversity. It is seen as instrumentally valuable to employers. Obviously, this is a very elitist brand because clearly not all people with autism or any of the other conditions, ADHD and so on, will provide employers with a competitive advantage. Like, obviously, if you are very significantly disabled, you won't even be able to work, and even if you can work, it is likely, even if you can work and you are significantly disabled, you probably won't be able to maintain that type of job you probably won't be able to maintain the type of job which produces a lot of profit, shall we say. So this clearly only refers to a very niche minority of autistic or other neurodivergent, I'm using this in air quotes because I don't like the term, this is the term that's used, so I'll use it, neurodivergent people. That's neoliberal neurodiversity. Okay, so it's very elitist, and that's the neurodiversity that we see within capitalist co-option. Marxist neurodiversity, on the other hand, is far more radical, but Marxist neurodiversity is not the brand of a neurodiversity paradigm, or not the variant of a neurodiversity paradigm, which has been captured by institutions. Because Marxist neurodiversity is far more radical. It is not really capable of being co-opted by capitalism, so obviously capitalism is not going to touch Marxist neurodiversity with a barge pole, because Marxism and capitalism are two polar ideologies. Marxist neurodiversity locates neurodivergent disablement in a broader analysis of capitalism. It challenges the underlying social systems more than focusing on individual empowerment. So this model doesn't really focus on individual traits. It doesn't positively stereotype quite so much. It's more focused on systems and structures and how they disable people. However, it is still very much a purist version of a social model, in that it sees society as very much responsible for the person's disablement. It sees the structures in society as responsible for the person's disablement. It doesn't really focus too much on intrinsic disability, where the person will still be disabled even in an ideal society. That's not to say that some Marxist neurodiversity paradigm advocates do incorporate the medical model. Some of them do. It's a broad church. But those who are very hardcore social model ones tend to be quite utopian. Now, I will agree with them in many respects, and I think that the Marxist neurodiversity paradigm is far more approachable and far less offensive than the neoliberal version, because it does challenge structures, and it also is far less elitist and far more accommodating of those who are more severely disabled than the neoliberal version. But it can still be quite naive in terms of the way it often doesn't really focus on intrinsic disability. It's all caused by society. For some of these advocates, not all of them, for those who are more moderate and nuanced will understand that there are intrinsic factors as well. And that you can't completely ignore the medical model. Really, to be balanced, you'd have a synthesis between the social and the medical model. Janine Booth, who's an autistic trade unionist, is very much at the forefront of the Marxist neurodiversity paradigm. So this essentially, the Marxist neurodiversity paradigm incorporates neurodiversity advocacy within existing socialist struggles. And like I said before, I find this version of neurodiversity paradigm far more agreeable than the neoliberal paradigm. I take less issue against it, as after all I am a socialist myself. So I do find this model far more agreeable and less offensive. It's less elitist. Like I say, it does make space more for people like me. It does challenge wider structures. It's within the socialist campaign, so obviously they do advocate more for people on benefits and people who can't work, and their rights and their struggles. It's more in tune with that. But like I said, I am still critical of its extreme social model, which, like I said, does need to be tempered with an understanding that certain disabilities do have a very much an intrinsic layer as well. It's not all society. So they position neurodiversity justice as being at odds with government austerity, and they say that we need to remove barriers at all levels of society. Okay, so that's the Marxist one. So I'm now going to move over to video number 2, because I just want to carry on discussing the next neurodiversity paradigm approach, which is intersectional justice neurodiversity. Okay, so moving over to video number 2 now.